Would Jesus have a smartphone?
Would he have a social media account?
What would Jesus think about living in a digital age? And how can we learn to think like Jesus in an online world?
Find out in this episode of the Prepared to Answer podcast.
You're listening to the Prepared to Answer podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And just a reminder that all the resources mentioned in this episode are linked in the episode description. You can find other related resources on our website at preparedtoanswer.org.
Welcome to the Prepared to Answer podcast. My name is Shawn Walker, and I'm joined as always by Scott Steen. How are you, Scott?
Good. How are you, Shawn?
Good. For those that aren't watching on YouTube, we are decked out in plaid today.
Well, it's winter here in Canada. Plaid is the way to go.
Yeah.
And flannel. Plaid.
Flannel plaid. Keeps us nice and warm.
Yeah.
So we are back on the mental health journey and how Jesus would think about mental health.
Right.
Our last episode, we ended off talking about anxiety.
Yeah, kind of two parts of anxiety, right.
Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to this next topic in terms of mental health. And we're diving into the digital world and the effects of mental health. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very much related to, it's related to the last two discussions around anxiety, but the last discussion we had was really related to anxiety at the level of our physiology and how the way we inhabit our worlds, not just in terms of the conscious worries we have, but the habitat we live in can create physiological responses that contribute to anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. There's physiology in the brain. There's brain chemistry at work. And our quick look at how Jesus thinks about those things is we recognize from Scripture that God recognizes we're physical. We're made of dust, and we can't ignore that.
Right.
And Jesus didn't. And we looked at ways that he demonstrated that awareness. So in this discussion, we're moving to, okay, in light of that, and so many other things, in this point in time in history, our world is a particular kind of habitat. Specifically, we've really entered into a digital age. And all the data, Shawn, all the data is pointing to that is contributing in many ways to much of the mental health crisis that we're experiencing as a society, particularly in the Western world, but as we'll see, even around the world.
Yeah. Now, Jesus did not inhabit a digital
world. Jesus didn't have a cell phone.
If he did, what would he have? What do you think?
Oh.
iPhone? Android?
I'm not going there. I'm not going to play that game. I don't know. No brand loyalties here.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what?
So does he have anything to say then to a digital
world? Obviously not to the specifics of digital technology. Right. But, Solomon was right. There's nothing new under the sun.
Okay.
Right? He said that in Ecclesiastes.
Yes.
Everything that's been done and said has been done and said before.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a different form,
different
format, but the principles are the same. So I think that Jesus does have some clear truth to communicate to us and wisdom for life in a digital age, and that's what I want to dive into.
Yeah, and so this is a huge topic, the digital age. So how are we breaking this out? What is this going to look like? Yeah, well, in particular, our interest, of course, Shawn, is this affects everyone, but in particular, the data is demonstrating that it's affecting Gen Z, Gen Alpha, hot on their heels, to some extent the millennial generation, but the millennials were still those who were just kind of inside and outside of the digital age. But Gen Z, I mean, they are the digital smartphone generation. Yes.
And so we're really seeing its impact on them. And there's just some of the research that I was looking into as we were preparing for our talk today. Just some of the realities in terms of how much time Gen Z spends online, in particular on their phones. But I mean, there was since 2014-15, 95% of all in the Gen Z demographic, so young people, 95% say that YouTube is the platform they use. Okay. Closely behind them, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. Those are the biggies for Gen Z, right? About between 60 and 70% say they use those platforms. So interesting. Another study, though, showed of those platforms, 19% of young people say that they are almost constantly on YouTube. 19%. 19%. Yeah. 41% they are on several times a day. So the majority are on YouTube a lot. Right. And if it's not YouTube, 16% said that they're almost constantly on TikTok, 15% on Snapchat, 10% Instagram. So and then several times a day. So it's the amount of time spent. Like for many, it's hours and hours. Right.
So what does that impact then?
Well, the impact, I mean, there's lots of things we can look at. There's a couple studies that I thought were very interesting. I wanted to just point out. I think I've referenced in the past Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, which, I mean, it's not a Christian book, but a really good, if you want to look into the data.
Right.
He includes some really important research. The one study I found very interesting was they were tracking recording or reporting of major depressive episodes among teens. So teens experiencing depressive episodes. Sure. Now, this is self-reporting, so they're responding to, a series of questions like, have you experienced prolonged periods of feeling sad or empty or lonely? There were a number of, marked questions. There were 9 of them that they were responding to. And the ones they marked as experiencing major depressive, those were those who answered yes to 5 or more of those questions. Tracking from 2004 to 2020, for girls, there was a 145% increase.
Wow.
And for boys, 161%.
Wow.
Now, 2020, everyone's going to say COVID.
Sure.
Well, yeah, there was an uptick between 2019 and 2020. But the major acceleration, and they kind of marked these, he marks it on the graph with this shaded area, between 2010 and 2015 is roughly when they would, that's what they would mark as the advent of the proliferation of the smartphone. Right, moving from phones that just text and talk to phones that were internet web connected.
Sure.
And began to be common in the pockets of young people.
Sure. And with that, we're looking at social media then.
Right, the social media platforms.
Advent of.
It's when it really came online en masse. And you can see on the graph, it's like a hockey stick.
For those that don't know hockey, though, what do you mean by a hockey?
For those outside of our Canadian listening audience, I mean it's like trucking along, and then there's this sudden sharp incline. Right. If you look at a hockey stick when it's sitting on the ground, right?
Yeah.
So that's very telling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, people would say, "Well, it's a correlation; it's not causation." Okay, but it's pretty significant.
Sure.
What's also interesting, and again, you could say these are all correlation.
Right.
But the data,
once it starts building upon itself, it's like, how long can you say that?
The other study I thought really interesting is that there's been a happiness index that they've been tracking since 1976 for in the U.S. for teens.
Yeah. So
teens who self-reporting say that they are very happy. So 1976 to 2023. And you can imagine, it's ups and downs.
Yeah.
You can't see this on our podcast, but there's a number of sharp declines. And Shawn, you and I are old enough to remember these periods. When I was graduating from university, we were in the middle of a recession from 1990 to 1992 here in Canada. And you can see this is sharp decline.
Sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And I get that. I was a little down too.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Also the financial crisis of 2008.
Same thing.
Right. But then back up again.
Sure.
Again, that window, 2000, in this case, 2012 to 2016, it goes sharp down and just keeps going down and goes down to historic record lows, like going all the way back to the 70s.
Sure.
And then if you include the years approaching and into COVID, it just keeps going down.
Yeah.
Like sharp, like dramatically. Jean Twenge she's a researcher in this area. She's a fairly well-known researcher. She's written a number of books. She has a Substack and continues to research on this connection between social media, technology, and teen mental health. She said in an article she put out in just this summer, 2025, she said, as smartphones and social media became pervasive in the 2010s, teen happiness plummeted. The data just points it out clearly.
So I think it's fairly safe to say with the advent of the smartphone, social media, mental health decline, it's pretty obvious.
The data all points there, and now they even have data that's global data. So it's not just American.
Sure.
Right? This is worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then would Jesus say, just get rid of your cell phone? or is there more to this?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, my own bent is I'm always cautious to go to extremes.
Exactly.
Right. And to say it's all bad.
Right.
Right. Let's get rid of it all.
Yes. Head to the bush.
Yeah. And I guess in some ways I'm a bit of a realist that, we live in the world. The world this is the world.
Yep.
We can't escape it.
Right.
The Apostle Paul said, don't become part of the world, but that doesn't mean we can leave the world.
Right.
We have to be wise. We are walking as pilgrims, as foreigners in some extent.
Mm-hmm.
but we do still live in the world, and we want to be wise then. So I think Jesus, no, would he say, get rid of your cell phone? I don't think so. I think Jesus would point to biblical wisdom.
Okay.
And that's what I want to do.
Okay.
That's what I want to help our listeners to do, as far as how do I think in the manner of Jesus in a digital age.
Okay. So how are we going to tackle this then?
Well, I think one of the things that the questions I think we need to answer in order to think like Jesus is that what the data is clearly showing us is there's this, first of all, that there's this proliferation of, particularly in Gen Z, the young generation, of the amount of time they spend online.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And the data is clearly showing the result is a sharp decrease in mental health.
Right.
Increase in anxiety, depression, all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
The question I want to ask is why? The correlation's there, and so we could say then biblical wisdom is to say you
get rid of the phone.
Right. Get rid of it or but I want to know why.
What's the deeper reason?
There's got to be something behind it. In Haidt's book, he provided, I think, some really useful insight. He talked about the opportunity cost of living in a digital age. Opportunity costs refer to anytime you choose to do one activity, there's a cost to it in terms of other activities you have to give up or other things you have to give up in order to do that. And he said, in devoting so much of our conscious time to social media and the internet, there's an opportunity cost to what we're giving up as a result. And he names 4. He talks about social deprivation.
Okay.
He mentions sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction. Okay. And I think all 4 of those have some wisdom to be unpacked that will help inform us. I think inform some biblical wisdom.
Okay.
So I think they're worth looking at in turn.
And not only for Gen Z.
Not only for Gen Z.
Yeah.
No, for all of us.
Sure. Because we're all in the digital age now.
We are. And I think we just bring up Gen Z because, well, our heart as a ministry, we're concerned for the next generation.
Yes.
And I think also the next generation, our young people are, I would argue, more vulnerable than the rest of us because they're still in that critical developmental stage of their lives.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think as a society, we ought to be particularly concerned as much as we want to be concerned for all people.
So what are we going to tackle today then?
Yeah, well, I think in the time we have left, we'll just look at social deprivation today. I think there's something here. There's something really interesting.
And when you say deprivation, what do you mean?
Social deprivation. Here's the dictionary.
The dictionary. We need the jingle.
All right.
Yeah.
It's Scott's Dictionary time.
Deprivation. This is the Oxford Online Dictionary. Deprivation is the damaging lack of material benefits considered to be basic necessities in a society.
Okay.
All right. So it's a lack of
social interactions.
It's a lack of socialization.
Okay.
Okay. So there are a couple of studies I looked at. One of them was Jonathan Haidt. I mean, he has so much research in his book. I'll just quote him because all the studies are too hard to. In his book, this again, Anxious Generation, one of the studies that he cited was tracking from 2003 to 2020, the average daily minutes that young people, so this is teens now, age 12 to 17, spend with their friends.
Okay.
Okay.
Like physically spend.
Physically.
We're not talking online.
No.
Okay.
No. Hanging with their friends.
Sure.
Like real time.
Yeah.
Actually, there's 3 different age groups, but they're all within the teenage years. And again, in that window of the cell phone window, 2010 to 2015, there's this dramatic decline, and it just keeps going down up to 2020. And I think it's important up to 2020 because that's the COVID year, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it kind of corrects for COVID. Let's not blame everything on COVID.
Right.
It got worse in COVID, of course.
Oh, yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
But this is apart from that up to the end in 2019. In 2003, on average, 15 to 24-year-olds said they spent about 158 minutes per day with their friends.
Hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the end of 2019, it was a little over 40.
From 158 to 40.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, of course, in a digital age, people would say, sure, but they are actually spending more time with their friends because they're online. And I remember my son would get, when we got his PlayStation, and all of a sudden games became
social.
internet connected.
Yeah.
It wasn't just playing with your friend on the same couch. They could be at home,
right,
and you could get in the same game environment.
Sure.
Another study correlating with that, which is very interesting, is the school loneliness report. So this is a report of kids self-reporting on feelings of loneliness, and actually all around the world. But in that same cell phone era, starting there and then just continuing on, the graph goes in the opposite direction. As face-to-face time with friends decreased, reporting of loneliness increases.
And that's with more time spent on social platforms.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Like it's not less time in communication with friends. It's less time in the face-to-face.
Physical.
Right.
Interesting.
Actually interpersonal, right, real world community.
Yeah. I think Christ had something to say about community.
Well, I think this is very telling.
Mm-hmm.
And, so how do we think like Jesus about a digital age?
When it comes to social deprivation.
When it comes to social deprivation, we realize something. And one of the things we talk about in thinking like Jesus is how the grand story of the Bible informed every thought. That was his explanatory framework for understanding reality. We can put it that way. And as a Christian, that becomes our explanatory framework. The Bible informs our understanding of what it means to be a human being, what the world is, and what God meant us to be in it, and what he created us to be. Right out of the gates in the beginning of the story is the creation account, right? He creates Adam. He puts him in the garden. Adam's on his own. He's living with all the animals. He's starting to exert his role as exerting dominion over the earth by naming the animals. Yeah. But he's by himself. Yeah. And God says it's not good. He's alone and it's not good. Yeah. Now, some people will come along and say, there, you see, we're not supposed to be single people. God means for everyone to get married. That's not what it means. Because Genesis 1 is what informs. God says it's not good. Well, what does that mean? Well, that's informed by what God said was good in Genesis chapter 1. And what was good is every time God created something and it was fulfilling the purpose he made it for, he said, it's good. Right. Adam on his own was not fulfilling the purpose God made him for. And what was that purpose? Genesis 1. Let's create man in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule the earth, subdue it. And he says to the man and woman, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and rule it. Adam couldn't do that in isolation. Sure. So Eve was the solution in terms of creating this immediate social environment for Adam to live in.
Yeah. And God could have created Adam to produce himself, but that was not part of creation.
Right. He could have. Yeah. Right. Or he could have just created everyone or,
all at once.
Populated the earth immediately, but he chose not to do that. I think in there is we recognize there's a very significant purpose that in God creating the human family. Now, I don't think because we say that the human family is the end goal for God's creating purpose. Right. It's important, but I think it actually serves to fulfill God's purpose that points to something greater.
Right. Which we would find where?
Well, I think Jesus points us to this. Okay. Because even Jesus, in calling people to himself, said, hey, if you're going to follow me, you need to even hate your mother and father.
Ooh, tough words.
Right. And that's not a prerequisite to following Jesus. That's not what he meant. Right?
Let's be clear about that.
You're not qualified to be in my club as you hate your parents. No, that's not what he's saying. Yeah. What he's saying is that in God's economy, in terms of God calling a people to himself, God's ultimate purpose for humanity, that his purpose is for all eternity, that the human family is not the ultimate loyalty of the community that God wants to create for his people. Yeah. It transcends human family. Ultimately, it's rooted in Jesus, right, as our head, right? And then this is where the grand story of the Bible informs us. On the other end, as you look to the end of the story in Revelation, and it ends with a wedding. It starts with a wedding, right? Ends with a wedding. Yeah. But this is the ultimate wedding of the ultimate bridegroom, who is Jesus, the Son of God, now become flesh, now become human, and his people, the church. So what this is pointing to, Shawn, is that thinking like Jesus about social media, living in a digital age, is the kind of social deprivation that seems to be almost characteristic of doing life online, is working counter to the ultimate purpose of God in redeeming us through Christ, of calling us into a living, breathing, family community that is the church.
And that will be for eternity.
Right.
This is what we're to be for eternity.
Yeah, and exactly. And we've talked about this before, how the grand story of the Bible, one of the big things it does is it changes our time horizon. And one of the things I'm trying to do more and more often, Shawn, is allowing the end of the story of what the trajectory is, where it ends, to inform what I say or what I know God is saying is important now, right? Where should I put my energy? Now. Mm-hmm. Well, if God's purpose for eternity is for us to live in a communion of family with Jesus, right, as the husband, right, of the family, or the head of the family, and we live in relational unity, no sin, no conflict, right? The conflict of the garden of the fall back in Genesis 3, right? They were ashamed to be naked before one another because there was this social alienation that was the result of sin. Well, God will undo that all in eternity. That's the end goal. That's what we should be focusing on in the here and now.
Yeah.
As God's people.
Yeah. So not only for the next generation, we're talking to all Christians about, and non-Christians too. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that, how I feel like secular society is catching up to what Scripture has talked about for millennia, the importance of community, that as our secular culture talks about the mental health crisis, different parts of society are starting to recognize how important community is for people.
You know what? You say, as soon as you say that, it's interesting. It brings to mind a friend this week sent me a link to an article that was posted by CTV News. Now, for those outside of Canada, CTV is one of Canada's nationwide news networks.
Yeah.
And actually on the 10th, so 2 days ago, they posted this article, Return to Faith, Attendance Increasing for the First Time in Decades, one church leader says. And it's a kind of a study of a number of sociological researchers in Canada, and they're pointing to something that's actually happening in other places too, particularly starting in the UK.
Yeah.
Gen Z is coming back to church.
Right.
Is the short of it.
Yes.
And this is being seen all around. These people are mostly in Toronto area. One of the researchers made this point. Why is it? Why is Gen Z coming back? Why is this digital generation
coming into the building?
Right. For the millennials, it was the reverse direction. They were the unchurched generation.
Yes.
Gen Z, she says, Gen Z is craving something real in a world that often feels filtered, performative, and transactional. She says they're growing up in a time when community can mean group chats and comment sections. So organized religion offers something screens can't: shared values, physical presence, and deeper purpose.
That's what Scripture is all about. That's what Jesus is talking about.
Yeah.
The grand story.
Well, exactly. And so, the research is indicating it's almost a misnomer to use the term social online community.
Yes.
And I know the debates have gone on, and we're probably going to get some hate mail on this. The debates about, I can do church online.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Is it good that churches are online? Yes, because it's better than nothing.
Right. Yes. Okay. Right. Yes.
But if you have an option between online and going in person to be in community and fellowship with a local church, then you ought to do that.
Yes. Yeah. Christ didn't have a different definition or section for doing church online and doing church together.
No, because there's something implicit to the notion that we can experience community online, and it actually, again, factoring into how to think like Jesus, it actually contradicts, I think, what Scripture makes clear, that what God makes clear, is that He has created us as embodied image bearers.
Yes.
And we think that we can be image bearers, that we can be human without the physical, without engaging the one another, right?
Yes.
The presence of being with another person.
Yeah.
That's a part of what it means to be human. And living online takes that out of the equation.
Yeah.
And I think to our peril.
Yeah. Yeah. And nothing to say that we serve a God that is triune, that is community essentially.
Right.
In and of itself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so we would expect that to be image bearers. We would bear that image of community. And what I find so fascinating is secular society catching up to that and realizing that Scripture's been talking about this for thousands of years, the need for and the importance of. And we go off and think that we can be alone and be on our own and be fine. And And we're finding that is not the case.
Right.
Good. Well, I think that's probably a good place to end this episode. Well, you mentioned 3 other aspects, those social opportunity costs.
Right. Yeah. And so we'll come back to those. I'm not sure how much of whether it'll be 1 episode each or not.
Sure.
But the next one is sleep deprivation, and I think it's fascinating.
I'm tired thinking about it. But yeah, so like you said, it might not be 3 more episodes, but it might be 1 or might be a couple. But looking forward to touching on those aspects and coming into thinking about talking about how Jesus would think about the digital age.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't quite sure where we were going to go, but
I'm never sure where we're going to end up, to be honest.
Exactly.
That's what makes these conversations so exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So we look forward to having you join us again. If you have any questions, you can always reach us on the platform that you're watching or listening to, or you can email us at info@preparedtoanswer.org. And until next time, God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Prepared to Answer podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at info@preparedtoanswer.org, contact us through Facebook or Instagram @preparedtoanswer, or use the contact form on our website, preparedtoanswer.org.